Hi everyone, Cheltenham's almost upon us and the long wait is nearly over. And joining me for the Betway preview, real luminaries of the game, John Frankham, who can remember very little about his career, which is probably just as well. Dickie Johnson's absolutely flying at the moment. And Davy Russell, the top man from Ireland, although Ruby Walsh should give an argument. Now, lads, you must have early memories of the festival. What are your first memories of Cheltenham as a kid?
Well, I don't remember it as a child because I was never really interested in racing until I was about 16 or 17, went to Fred Winters. But my first...
Too busy nicking cars back then, weren't you?
Yeah, keeping it out of trouble anyway. But my first ride at Cheltenham was in a novice chase. And I remember jumping the first one down the hill and it jumped it really well and then tipped upside down and I broke my wrist. And... actually, it got better after that. I was telling somebody yesterday, 1969-70, we used to get 3 foot of snow every year. It was brilliant. No jumping during the summer, 3 months off basically in the middle of the winter. And by the time my wrist had healed, racing had started again. But my first festival winner was on a horse called Pengrail, who won an RSA chase. A month later, it was abandoned and they put it on and he just went round, You could have ridden, well, anyone, all of us could have won on him. But a lot of it's having a little bit of luck, isn't it, at the festival? You ride lots of good horses throughout the year, and by the time they get there, they're just not on the game. When you go down to the start. Fred Winter was the most brilliant guy to work for, brilliant trainer, but for reasons only known to him, 3 weeks before Cheltenham, used to change the routine, start doing things differently.
I never knew that.
No.
When you went for your interview with Fred, did he not ask you what's the lightest weight you've ever done? And your answer was?
Well, I was struggling. I was 11.7 when I went as an apprentice when I was 16. And he said, your problem's going to be, your weight. What's the lightest you've ever been? I said, well, about 7 pounds, 3 ounces, I think. He never smiled. He never even looked up, but he was the best bloke to work for.
Yeah, no, you loved him.
Hardly ever said anything all day long. You'd drive him to Lingfield, used to drive him every day of the week. He'd say about 4 words there, 4 words on the way home. Never argued. Brilliant guy, but man, a few words.
Dickie, your early memories as a child of Cheltenham. You weren't a million miles away in Herefordshire growing up.
No, but I think my first memory was probably Norton's Coin winning the Gold Cup. More that I had a nice cooked breakfast when I went to Cyril Griffiths' with my dad. What
age were you then?
With the milking cows. Was it 1990? So I'd been about 12 or 13. But yeah, I mean, it was a big story because it was 100 to 1. But obviously, because we obviously knew the family, it was quite special. And then obviously, I think Flaky Dove was the first year I was 16 working for the Duke, and again, she was a local mare.
Were you already keen then, by Norton's Coin time? Did you want to be a jockey at that stage?
Like you said, I never really watched racing. I'd loved riding ponies. It was all about riding the ponies and being involved rather
Flat out round the farm,
yeah,
like a lunatic.
Exactly, yeah, not thinking very much.
Changed.
No, exactly. But yeah, it was only later on I realised that perhaps I'd be a jockey rather than a farmer because it was a bit easier.
As you once said, you're built for carrying sacks of potatoes. Yeah,
I'm built to be a farmer rather than a jockey, but luck's been on my side.
And Davy, your earliest memories as a kid in Ireland?
Yeah, well, for me at home, it was a kind of a pilgrimage for my dad going over there. And, horse-wise, it was Dawn Run. I can remember still to this day sitting on the back of the couch, riding a finish up the hill. I was 5 or 6 and as clear as the day. And I was just amazed by the crowds that all you could see was John Joe coming across the telly. You couldn't even see the mare. And
hats going up.
Yeah, hats and roaring and shouting. And Dad would always come home with a present if he had a good year. And maybe
was that the year he drove the lawnmower there?
Yeah, that must have been a good year. Yeah, I still have a toy at home that I got. It could have been that year. Was a Land Rover Jeep and a horse box behind it, and we still have it at home. Yeah, it was. It's for me. You see, Cheltenham was this mystical place. And
when did you first go to the meeting? Do you remember that?
When for Ferdy, I got a phone call to ride in the amateur race.
The 4 miler?
No, the handicap.
The Kinmure.
The Kinmure, and to ride a horse called Tony's Tip, and for Ferdy in the tipper colours. There were the green and orange colours, and that was the first ride around there. I thought the speed was unbelievable. I always thought during the race that they were going too quick, they have to stop, and I just stayed.
Had you been to Cheltenham before?
No, not at all. No. It was just a distant place. They had no accommodation, didn't know how I was getting from the airport to the race course, had nothing organised.
On the lawnmower, like that.
Yeah. And just arrived on and fell in love with it then after that.
And they went so quick and they didn't come back. I
Never
suppose.
came back, but
No.
they were better horses, you see. You know, I was only used to riding them point to point.
I mean, lads, you've all had massive success there. It is different, those 4 days, or they are different. Is it all about position? What are the secrets? What's the advice you give to a youngster?
You've got to be on the right horse to begin with.
Right.
You know, you can ride something that's been really impressive throughout the year, gets to Cheltenham, and you just rank it up just half a notch, gets them out of their comfort zone. You've got to have enough pace to be handy early. And then when you get to the top of the hill on the far side, I always say to young lads, just have a look to see where the winning post
how
is.
far
It's
away it is.
further than you'll ever ride a bit of work any morning of the year. And, you know, you've already galloped, you know, half your race at that
And
stage.
even for me, on the very rare occasions I walk the course, it is an absolute, it's country mile and a half from the top of the hill up the hill.
Yeah, it's really easy to get sucked into going too fast. Do you not think so?
Yeah, massive. Me and Davy were saying earlier, it's a race, it's a track that you always think there is a stayers track, but you need, like John said, you need a horse that has quality and pace to travel, because all of a sudden, like Davy says, well, if you take your time, they don't come back. Yeah. But obviously, if you're up there, you need to stay as well. So it's a real test on.
It's like
on
some
horse.
knife edge you're on.
Yeah, it's most certainly you're balancing on a very, very thin line that you can either overdo either side of waiting tactics to forceful riding. And you know, the one thing that I would say is what John said is to get to the top of the hill, and just remember that if you use to get down the hill, you've no chance to get up the hill. Right. So whatever chance you have,
You've got to sort of smuggle them down the hill
you have
and
to,
have a
exactly.
bit left.
And there's
Are they rougher races than other meetings?
The
I mean,
first
are you a lot more cutthroat? Well, you're not
first two
anymore, you're
furlongs.
very gentle.
Early on, like especially in the handicaps. I mean,
You
it
fight
is,
for a position, don't you?
well, yeah, because everyone's told get a good start, and you know when there's 24 runners, you know that all of a sudden it's like John said. Most of the year round, you ride with 16 is a maximum field,
Yes.
usually 8 or 10 on a daily basis. So it's a massive difference for especially the young horses. They've never seen this many horses in one place, let alone.
And say
next
young
to each other.
claiming jockeys have suddenly dropped into races like that in the big handicaps.
There's a lot of very brave lads that frighten us.
It's a big advantage if you're riding for somebody who's got confidence in you, so that you're not there thinking, God, I know that bloke in the stands is thinking I should be 6 lengths further up the field. So you just, which would be the wrong place to be, so that you're able to just say, right, I've got to sit here and suffer. This horse is going absolutely flat to the boards, and he'll either come back on the bridle at some stage or he isn't good enough.
And say Philip Hobbs, he doesn't burden you with orders in the paddock, does he? I mean,
No, it's like John said, when you're riding for or working for good people, they give you that confidence that ideally you want to be in the first 6, but again sometimes in a Coral hurdle or a county hurdle, I mean the speed they go.
it goes so fast.
It's more. It's. I would think it's quicker than a sprint at Royal Ascot for the first 2 furlongs, and you've got to let your horse travel where it can travel, because if it's out of its comfort zone, it's not going to finish the race, like Davy said. So it is a balancing act, but obviously you go out with a plan A, but often
But you've got
things
to keep
do change.
adapting that plan A.
For all the
because
punters-
everyone's got plan A.
Yeah, for all the punters at home that are watching the horse that they've backed, and it's probably 15th or 16th in the county hurdle, out the back, and they think, what is he doing on that? Just go and have a look at it when it pulls up. It will be out on its legs, exhausted. Jockey might not have had anywhere to go, might have been flat out. It will be done its bit.
And obviously, for members of the public, folk like me writing about it, the atmosphere is amazing, and we're in the stands making this incredible racket. Do you hear all that? Did you pick that up, or are you in a sort of zone of you're not deaf, I know, but you know, when does that hit you, or doesn't it?
It's an extraordinary thing. You can, when the flag drops for the Supreme Novices, you can hear the noise. But when you get closer to the stand, you don't hear the noise. It's an amazing thing. You just zone. You can hear it because you're not in a race. But the minute you get into the race, the noise disappears, and you can hear a lift if there's a horse coming from behind, or if you're coming from behind on a fancied horse towards the line. But you do hear it, but you can hear it in no other race course.
Do you find you have to concentrate a lot harder at the festival?
I don't.
You know, on what you do. When the race starts, where you're going to be, horses around you, hurdles coming a bit quicker.
Yeah, I kind of I expect that anyway. So I don't just specifically say to myself down to the start, right, I need to concentrate more. I have done that before I even get to Cheltenham. That these are 4 days.
You've almost ran the race.
Yes.
You must
in your mind quite a few times, because obviously we're talking about these horses.
I've got your excuse ready.
2 months, but yeah, exactly. You can think of every excuse going, but yeah, you've always sort of thought of everything that can go wrong, or hopefully, you've thought of the right things as well. So that's like Davy said, before you get to the start, you have to be, you want to get to the start in good time, get your girth checked early, so you don't want to be the last one to be trying to get your position in the 24 runners, because all of a sudden then you're never going to get
it can
back
go
in
there at the start, can't it?
It can.
Yeah.
The strangest race I rode in, and lucky enough I won it, was the Nicky Henderson race the Grand Annual 2 years ago. Remember, a horse got ran away with on the way to the start.
Oh yeah.
Oscar Hill, and 2 mile chasers, handicap chasers, were revved to the nines, and we stood about 50 yards from the starter for a good minute, and there wasn't a horse swished its tail, and literally a second later they were going as hard as they could go. It was it was the most strangest thing. The whole field stood until Oscar Hill was caught. And then all of a sudden we had to change from being not moving, not doing anything. We were all having a laugh, and next thing we were in the zone.
What's the fastest you've ever been over a fence?
I
Is it at
rode
the festival?
Yeah, definitely. In the Grand Annual.
I made it in that race on Next Sensation, who won the race the following season.
Scaeux.
And Tom Scaeux told me, because obviously he had to ride for David Pipe, he said to me, look, you have to let him go forward. That's how he does it. I'd never been so quick over 4 fences up the straight, and
we absolutely.
I mean, he to be fair, he jumped brilliant, and he finished fourth. He led at the last. That's his style of racing on decent ground. But there was very little margin for error.
The way you set up a horse during the year, you riding a horse, you're setting him up as he's going along. You're popping away. You're giving it. If you try and do that over the first couple of fences, if you actually try and ride your horse like a jockey rides a horse during the year, you'll be lost.
The horses have to think for themselves. That's the thing. When they get to Cheltenham, like John said, if the horses are, had especially novice chasers, they've been running 4 novice chases around Lingfield and around Newbury on bottomless ground at a nice steady canter. All of a sudden, they get to Cheltenham.
They're going like hell out the night.
They're going 4 strides quicker.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, they don't have as much time to go and pop and warm up through the race and be brave at the end of the race. They have to be brave at the first couple of fences. And
that's why you're so lucky if you're on a good horse that's travelling. Because for every jockey that's thinking, God, this is absolutely flat to the boards, there'll be somebody who's just sitting there saying, God, hang on.
His name's Ruby Rolls.
God, they go on, just let a reef out, boys, I'm getting run away with.
It's fascinating to listen to you three about just how different it is for these few days. I mean, it's war rather than sport, almost. What is your most priceless moment from Cheltenham?
In terms of memory, I agree with Davy. Watching Dawn win that Gold Cup, that's always the first thing that comes to mind whenever.
What about your personal triumphs?
Personal,
Or
probably.
can't you remember them anymore?
No, Fred Winter winning a Gold Cup on Midnight Court for him. He'd had the favourite 3 or 4 years.
That was the year it was run in April.
It was run a year later, a month later.
Did you go back to his old training methods for that one?
Well, I think he'd had a month to go back to his old ones. You're right, absolutely right. But he'd won 3 Grand Nationals as a jockey, 3 as a trainer, won the Champion Hurdle, and it was missing off of his CV. So no, that was a special moment, definitely.
Davy, your best moment?
Yeah, I suppose you'll never forget your first winner anyway. And that was special, and I over-celebrated and I done everything, and it was only the cross-country race, but if it was even the charity race, it would have meant as much, you know, it's Cheltenham.
What was it?
Native Jack in the cross-country race for Philip Rothwell. It was a spare ride again, just lucky enough to ride it, but I suppose the one that, you know, Lord Windermere was it wasn't exactly designed to go like that, but I took it upon myself that my horse couldn't go any quicker, and I said, look, it's better that he finishes in the first 5 than finishing in the last 5, and then all of a sudden he was good enough to
fell your way.
Yeah,
I think jockeyship wins more races at the festival than at any other meeting of the year.
Yeah.
Most times you watch racing Monday to Sunday, and I think, well, you know, I can name you 9 other jockeys that would win on that. But at the festival, it's absolutely critical that you've got somebody who's on the ball.
And Dickie, you're talking about on the ball, your good self. Your favourite memory of your own triumphs?
Like I say, I think your first winner is very special, and for me, Anzen was my first winner.
Yes,
he
40 to 1.
He was a big price.
Yeah.
He wasn't surprised, and he was sort of upset the Irish hot pot, Le Coudray. So there was lots of reasons, but obviously the main one for me was it was my first winner, but also it was for David Nicholson, who, you know, who got me going and supported me, and it was his last festival as a trainer. So I mean, it was. Yeah.
Was he fancied at all? Because you were right there, obviously, at the time.
The Duke thought he had an each way, which he was second. He's been second in the race 2 years previously. He was a tough old stayer. You know, he'd won a long walk. He'd done all the right things, but Le Coudray was so well fancied from Ireland that
He was a bit of a Cole Harden, wasn't he?
yeah, exactly. Even again in that race, I never travelled for 1 yard.
No.
I was behind the bridle all the way, and good job. I was pretty stupid at the time. Even at the top of the hill, I still thought I had every chance.
What age were you?
I think it was 20, yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, I'd never had a festival winner, so I had a few seconds and things, and you think it's never going to happen. So you throw the kitchen sink at it, literally. And yeah.
So not the kitchen sinks you've got through down the years.
But yeah, I think it was a very close winner, and
Yeah.
even the Duke, apparently when he was walking off the stands, didn't even realise it had won until someone had told him. So it was a perfect result for me.
Gents, let's turn our attention to this year's sort of crucial battles.
The new one, he's a tough old stick, and actually, I think Nigel Twist and David Sauce are in absolutely as good a form
They're
as
in good
They
form, and they
really
weren't
have
last
covered.
year. You know, he ran well last year, and they were, you know,
They weren't
almost
flying,
said,
but they are now.
And
definitely
he's a
not.
horse that's run well at Cheltenham year in year. So I mean, again,
Cheltenham owes him something.
at least you know he's good enough to be there in the mix.
I'd really like to, actually, Davy might know. I think Nichols Canyon is every bit as good as him when he's right. And I went back and watched that race at Leopardstown. He travelled every bit as good of it, and something went, whether he broke a blood vessel or something went wrong with him, but it wasn't that he wasn't just good enough on that day.
Well, except Davy says Faheen raised his game to another level. That wouldn't explain Nichols Canyon for you,
that
would
wasn't
it?
him.
No.
I was away at the time, and I said, "Oh, how did Nichols Canyon get on?" I said, "Oh, he was third in one place," and I thought, "Oh, he just wasn't good enough." When I went back and watched it again, obviously I was disappointed. But if they got him back right, he did something was amiss with him,
Right, fair enough.
in my book.
It'd be very interesting to see my 10 to yours. Like AP's always had amazing faith in the horse that he is a champion hurdle horse. If he settles and if it's a really fast run race and the ground is decent, he probably is the one horse that might be slightly sort of still
Still
unexposed.
under the radar, isn't it?
Because
For this time.
yeah, things haven't perhaps gone, you know, smoothly with him, but. You know,
But he's pulled himself into oblivion there in the past.
he has, and they've spent a lot of time. He worked around Kempton the other day
Yes, with Hargam.
you know, and they've obviously worked hard on it. And I just think that Nicky Henderson's he is a great man at getting them to the festival.
Will they run him in the citation?
I don't know. He worked in it. So that's what he worked in. He's obviously going to run in the Kingwell
That would stop.
to see what happens.
That would throw down a juggernaut.
Barry said he was still taking it on.
Oh, by God, that's.
So that tells you how keen he is to get
It's
on
a
with
fair
it.
bit of machinery they had on him, the piece of equipment they had on him.
Yeah.
So if that works, and it does settle him, but obviously at times then that can oversettle a horse too. So
I was at Nicky Henderson's recently, and they had high hopes of getting him getting him there to start with, and it's just been a long time off for him.
He did look well. He looked very well and jumped well.
I'd rather his champion hurdle be his first run rather than having a run beforehand and then going to a champion hurdle, because of this famous bounce.
Might just jazz him up a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, and then you're thinking about you're going to ride my 10 to yours, and whether you're going to get it to the start in one piece, whether it's going to be on wash with sweat, whether it's going to settle on.
I think that's the thing you want at Cheltenham. You want a horse that takes it all in.
Yeah.
Let's say canters to start, doesn't lose any energy, doesn't worry about a false start or something untoward happening, which it can happen.
You made the point earlier that they can get very wound up by the atmosphere, and Ruby says that, say in the bumper, half of them are beaten by the time they get to post.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
And you back that up because it's just all too much.
I think you need, even all the horses I won on, the likes of Lord Windermere, they're all sedate horses at home. You kind of need to get them a little bit wound up yourself, whereas Cheltenham does that automatically to them.
Do you think it's an advantage when you bring them over from Ireland and they're at Cheltenham for a few days, and you go see Willie's horses? They're all out in the mornings, 7:30. They're getting, a good.
And Willie there at 8:30.
Yeah, they're getting a good, they're getting a good jar full of the atmosphere, and they know what's going on. Sometimes I think, well, maybe they're better off staying in their own stable the night before, but maybe it just customise it.
One horse, Tiger Cry, for Arthur Moore.
Yes.
He came over and he had a poor preparation. Obviously, Arthur is a genius at getting a horse ready for a day. The longer he was at Cheltenham, the better he was getting. The horse was literally growing as the days went by. And he won. Do you remember the year of the storm and conditions were quite soft? He was never able to handle soft ground in his life. And the one day that he did handle it was in Cheltenham. It was unbelievable. He improved definitely pounds as the longer he was.
As the pounds went on him, if I remember
It's
right.
a little bit like York on the flat. Some horses thrive, being jazzed up. They walk across the course coming over to the paddock. Cheltenham, it makes or breaks them.
Let's move on to the Betway Champion Chase. Is it all about under Scaeux, or can we get others into it? We must be able to. This is the great spectacle of the meeting for purists, I think.
I think he's the horse that I'm sure every jockey would want to ride. Actually, I was very impressed at Ascot. I thought it's the best I've ever saw him settle and jump. And I thought, for whatever reason, he just looked like more mature, and like I've seen him look pretty sketchy and brilliant. But there's a very fine line between being brilliant and trying to kill himself. But I thought at Ascot the last day, Ascot's not an easy place going down the hill to get in a nice rhythm, and I thought he was very good. So if he turns up at Cheltenham like that, this time last year we were all thinking he'll kill himself over the first mile in Cheltenham. He actually almost it made him sort of back off, and again whether the atmosphere for him almost made him concentrate. He's very hard to oppose.
Davy, you've seen obviously even more of him. Any worries about him?
Yeah, there is worries.
Go on.
There is worries. Obviously, he has them little hiccups at the early part of his past 2 seasons over fences that he's tipped up on both occasions. The first 2 fences in the Champion Chase are downhill. I would think that this year's Champion Chase is a little bit more competitive than, when you've likes of Sprint to Sacre, you have Gary Moore's horse, Sire de Grouge.
Sire de Grouge, yeah.
It's definitely a more competitive. You've 2 or 3 past winners of the race, whereas in Ireland we just there's nothing quick enough to go with him over the first couple of fences. It'll be different in the Champion Chase. There's loads of horses there with a lot of ability. So look, it's his race to lose. It's up to whatever way he behaves himself in the preliminaries. He's got a parade this year where he didn't have last year. He has to take that in. And, I think it's definitely under Sue's race to lose, but there is horses with a lot of ability there to...
Is he susceptible to the atmosphere, you think?
Definitely, yeah. I wouldn't mind if he had to come out of the parade and just canter to the start.
Yeah.
But it's a different story with the likes of him to come out of the parade ring and then stop and walk a parade and then canter to the start. That could be a bit...
He's a year older. That's what he's got on his side.
We all are.
Yeah, but he's a little bit more experienced. You know, some.
But he didn't show that in Leopardstown. No, he was quite extravagant in Leopardstown. He didn't show any maturity in Leopardstown, but he did show it in Ascot. But
I don't know whether he's through the season, as I say, when he has a few runs,
Yes,
it's
I
sort
agree.
of, you know, some horses their first run of the season, they are
It's the fizz out.
very, very excited and full of it, and he almost, yeah, he looks like he's grown up through this season. Obviously, you know, obviously last year he got better and better, and this
But
year.
the nuts and bolts of it, when the race starts, and we know the horses that you've mentioned, Ruby will be sitting there hacking.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
you know, that's the top and bottom of it. You know, they'll be having their own little race.
And I think Sprinter Sacre, it's been great to see him back.
Yes.
But he's not the horse he was
No.
a few years ago. You know, he's still a very, very high class
It's
horse.
definitely one of the most interesting races of the festival, because you have them things of Sprinter Sacre might be, you know, the superstar that he was. Could he get back to that? You've Sire de Grugy, you know, past winner, and then you have this young gun coming up.
But that's what we want to see, isn't
Oh,
it?
definitely.
Yeah.
We want to see something come along, another Badsworth boy, something that's going to win 3 champion chases on the bounce. Give
It's so
Betway
boring because
something
he used to win by a
celebrate.
furlong each time. But yeah.
I know, but
Not
it's
your
just a joy to watch it.
It
You know,
was,
the
it
things
was.
that you remember about the festival, you know, we're on about Dawn Run, masterminded coming down that hill, Sprinter Sacre, you know, top class 2 mile chasers
It is a sight
when
like
they're
that.
just, you know, that much
Viking
better.
Flagship,
Yeah.
Soundman, and what was the third horse thrown in
Deep
there?
Sensation.
Deep Sensation. Oh man,
Yeah.
that was some race. That
Yeah.
was as good a race. Charlie Swan.
Real battles.
Yeah.
Excellent stuff. Right, so we can't get Earns a Scout Baby. Sprinter Sacre, you can't give him. No.
I think Sire de Grugy would have beaten him on another day at Kempton
Yes.
last time, you know, given a better jump at the last. I mean, they've done well to get him back. And
Yes.
I thought he looked tremendous.
He looked good at Cheltenham for the first time since he last looked good at
Yeah, yeah,
Cheltenham.
yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Righty-ho, we'll move on to the World Hurdle. Thistlecrack, all the rage. Dave, you got any strong views on this?
Yeah, he can be a little bit temperamental, Richard. Can he?
I think he's got better. Like, he's funny enough, I rode for the owners and the trainer the other day, and on his half brother, and they said this time last year, I mean, they wouldn't have even dreamed of a World Hurdle, and he just flourished obviously through the spring last year. Won at Aintree.
It was very good second at Punchstone.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, his form
good
just
horse.
never stopped improving. At Ascot, I thought he was very impressive at Ascot.
He was. I rode in that race in Ascot.
Yeah, I was second to him, and
Yeah.
Tom Scaeux came to me, and Rev de Zavola is a really solid yardstick. You know, you can rate the race around him. Tom Scaeux came and took off after second last, off a strong place on not great on slow ground. He took off, and again, the further he went after last flight at Cheltenham the other day, the further he went clear. He just got going. For me, he's the one they've got to beat, and he's
Goes on any ground. Won at Aintree.
On an upward curve.
Absolutely. But he finishes races off. They must be a joy to ride. You know, he absolutely gets there and a bit more.
And the leading Irish contenders, what do you like the look of? What do you think's got the potential to step up on the day, which is going to have to?
Well, I won on Princess Scaeux, obviously the staying race, beating Mouse Morris's horse. John, you pronounce it there.
Yeah, the
I was-
French horse,
So
Obo.
I fell on at Aintree upsides to Thistlecrack of the last, and he's definitely got a chance.
But he was beat. Thistlecrack had him beat at the
I
time.
think unfortunately I was on fumes at the last.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, look, he's got to have a chance. But
If there's a Daniel
Mouse is a
Geraint-
great man. You know,
if they put
he's
back the
absolutely
races,
phenomenal.
If they
that's
put
it.
back the races 5 minutes, his horse will be gone over the top.
Yeah.
He hasn't that much.
To the minute.
Oh,
isn't
to
it?
the minute.
Yeah.
But if for some unknown reason, which it hasn't done the last couple of years, that the ground in Cheltenham came up heavy, soft, heavy, Princess Scaeux is a very, very good horse.
This has been a race that horses come back to it year after year. You know, it's littered with multiple winners.
Yes.
Cole Harden, good trainer, won it well last year.
Pilot on his back.
I think if
What
he
do you
gets
reckon?
his ground, I think he'll win it. But he'll need good ground. He won't win it on worse than good ground. I love the way he fights. I love the way he did it last year, and he hasn't had his conditions this winter. I think I take your point that horses run well in this, who've run well in it before, run well in it again. and I think he's slightly forgotten.
I think he wore his heart on his sleeve though last year. I think he had a very hard race.
He did have a hard old day.
He does look like a horse that's, not come back the same this
Do you
year.
think
For
so?
me,
That's interesting, no?
just even early on in the race, even though the ground's been against him, he just, for me, hasn't looked
going
like
with that relish
he
that
hasn't
he
got the
did
same
last.
spark he had for me last year. Even last year when the ground wasn't great, he for me he showed a lot more than he has this year.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I would be surprised if he could, reproduce what he did last year.
Right.
I'd be surprised if Thistlecrack gets beaten.
Right.
But I wouldn't be surprised if the ground was heavy that the Irish horses could. I think Alfred de Zobo at value, he's no bad horse. I think his future lies over fences, but he's definitely a horse with a lot of ability, and he's got a good confidence booster his last day of winning in Gorn.
There's no point in us guessing about the ground because it'd be desperate. It's been desperate in the run to the meeting, but a week's sun and Simon Clare's be watering it.
Oh,
Spotting
listen,
around
it soon
with
changes,
water,
but the
yeah.
one thing they won't allow it to do is become quick. And you
No,
probably
they-
think, what is he talking about? Of course, it's not going to be quick, but it does change really quick.
It
You get a bit of
changes
wind,
so
a bit of,
fast.
bit of sunshine.
Absolutely.
So they have to have it slower to keep that in mind over 12 hours. So it's going.
Do you think the fences have got a bit softer over the last couple of years?
No.
Do you not? Well, longer than a couple of years, because you've been doing it a long time now. Do you think they've not been modified a bit?
I think they're a beautiful fence.
I think that I'd be as happy riding a horse a first time out novice chase around Cheltenham as I would round anywhere else
But
in the
would
country.
that have been true
Yeah, but
15
nice,
years
there's
ago?
nice fences, aren't they?
But I think they're just presented very well. Like Davy said, they got, for a horse going down to them, they're a lovely, presented fence.
They're inviting.
The horses sort of respect them, but they actually jump very well.
There is a bit of leeway there.
I mean, there is a bit, but I think
Yeah.
More than they used to be, David.
Yeah, again, I don't know. I wouldn't be the best man to ask, but there's fences in Irish tracks and English tracks, that if you hit them, you go down. There's fences in parts of Cheltenham Racecourse. If you hit them, you're going down.
Jackadam the other day.
Yes, but then there is that little bit of leeway, but you're going so quick. If your jumping isn't up
the
to
nice thing
scratch.
about Cheltenham though is they are, for me, I feel they are very to the same all the way around. You get some tracks and
Yes.
one year they'll redo
Yes.
the ones in the back straight and the
Yeah.
other years they'll do ones
Yes.
so you do get
That'd
a
be
difference.
confusing, Dick.
It is. I struggle to get that.
Yeah.
But no, I think Cheltenham, but I think, like we were just saying, the first fence in the back straight, you run down to it and see a lot of horses make mistakes there because it's the undulations around Cheltenham that cause more problems than the
Yeah, people don't
fences
realise
themselves.
the dips that are there.
And you're out of your comfort zone.
Yeah,
Most
that's
of
the
them,
most- that's the most-
most
that's the most
horses,
important thing.
80% of those running around at the festival will be going half a
Yeah.
stride too fast for themselves.
Moving on to the Gold Cup, mention of Jackadam. What would you'll say? I don't want to ride anything in the Gold
What
Cup.
a great race last year, by the way.
Fantastic.
When you stop and think what the horses have achieved that finished behind Coney Gree, Betfred, the Grand National winner, Betfred Bowl, all sorts of winners came out of that race. And normally it's a
And I thought at the
death
time
knell
it might
for
be a race that was so savage it might really pull them to bits. I mean, it was an extraordinary race.
Yeah, I think like I was lucky enough to ride Coney Gree to win the Demon Chase and before that, and there's very few horses I've ever ridden that can gallop and jump with his sort of brilliance, but also so efficiently, and that's what.
He seems to be really well balanced when he lands. He's like a greyhound. He's almost a hardy break stride. From takeoff to land, it's all one go.
Usually with most horses, when you meet one spot on, they jump it while land running and you're gone. If you're eating a bit tight, they land in a bit of a heap and you almost need to squeeze them away to get them going again. He meets everything sort of in a nice rhythm, and I was amazed. When I went up to him, I couldn't believe how big he was. I just didn't expect him. He's a big, strong horse, and that's why I was so taken with him after Newbury, and I wasn't surprised to see him do that. And I think, that'll sort of.
I was surprised.
Yeah.
I was gobsmacked. I really was.
So,
I was
I was
gobsmacked.
thrilled, but I was
Oh no, thrilled. Brilliant result. Nico gave him marvellous ride, brilliant for the trend, but I was gobsmacked. I couldn't believe that he'd done. I think it was a monstrous performance.
The lads in the race said they couldn't believe how quick they were going right from the start.
Yeah.
You know?
He doesn't let other horses get a breather. You know, when he jumps, it's almost like there's no jump there. They just don't get that chance to just get that.
But he's gone this year now, so
Yeah, he's not with us.
He's not. Yeah,
But, you know, it's worth paying tribute to, and what a mighty race it was last year.
Well,
you've
when the
got
likes of Jackadam that was second,
you know,
yeah.
who, to me, walking away from Cheltenham last year, I thought, well, next year it might be Jackadam's year. Yet it not greatly fell the other day. What sort of chance?
Well, he was a bit unlucky to fall.
Yes.
He just felt he was on the outside. He was doing the safe thing. He jumped brilliantly up until that point. You know, he was doing everything. Don Poley, obviously, you know, he looked good, didn't he, when he won last year, won an RSA chase.
Good,
I think Smad Place for me. I know everybody will say he's not good enough. He seemed a different horse, being able to bowl along, jumps well, and he stays well.
We know he stays.
He stays well.
They've definitely found a new Smad Place with their tactics. They've definitely found an improvement. So, you know...
He was definitely a sulker. You could see him in his races before.
They always said like he travelled so well, and I spoke to Wayne Hutchins before I rode him at Cheltenham the other day, and he said to me, he said, look, he just loves getting in a nice rhythm, and he said he jumps better because he looks at his fences, and he said he always used to travel almost too well and make the odd mistake because he wasn't concentrating on the fence, he was looking at everything else. And I said, I think sometimes then when they let him down, for whatever reason, he just...
Did he impress you?
Yeah, he was. The rhythm, and again...
Well, on the comparison to last year in the Denman chase with Cooney Green and this lad...
They are a similar type, and I think for Smad Place's chances, it's good that Coney Gree's not here, and if Coney Gree was here, Smad Place wouldn't have helped him because...
No, they'd have smashed into each other.
Yeah, they were going to annoy each other. And I think that's Smad Place's thing. I can't really see any other horse that's really probably going to take him on hard early, which I think I can't see why Smad Place shouldn't run a massive race. He's got the form around Cheltenham. I say he stays. I don't think Alan King said he always felt he wasn't sure he really loved the mud.
I don't think he does.
So I mean, it's one of those. He's handled it. Obviously, only ridden him once, and he loved. Well, he handled it really well. But he just seems to be loving life. So I couldn't.
He's the horse in the most improved state of form,
Yeah.
isn't he, of all the contenders? You say, well, this one's taken himself to another level this season.
But I think
that's enough.
you can say that with Q Card as well. Though. I feel he's never looked better. And you think he won the Champion Bumper, he won a Ryanair chase. You think he
Placed in a Supreme.
Reason,
I mean, his jump record is extraordinary.
His jumping he's settled better.
That'd be a story.
Everything seems to be really. I think for me, Smad Place and Q Card, if I had to ride one, it would be one of those two.
Choose. Go on, which one?
I'd probably just go with Q Card because I just think he's the class. As in he's through his career, he's been an absolute class horse.
The extra 2 furlongs.
He looked like he gets every yard of it. Like at Kempton, he needed this.
Yeah.
You know, he needed that. Every yard of the trip. So I again, because he's relaxed now, like you'll know, David. If horses don't relax, it doesn't matter what trip you ride them over. Yeah. They never finish. For whatever this reason, he just seems to be much more.
His jumping is extraordinary.
Yeah.
Well, I watched him jump at Wetherby, and I thought I'd take 6 to 4. He doesn't get round wherever he runs next time. He's head in the air like Tidal Bay. I just thought he must be a yak to sit on. But he's got better with every time that he's run, and he couldn't have been anywhere near right last year. I mean, when you look back, you know, you've got to feel sorry for Darryl Jacob, who's getting the rough end of the stick when a horse that wasn't travelling. You know, he ran in that Betfair chase, he'd get into close and everything, head in the air. Looks a different horse. But if I was winging down to the last, and you said you want to be on Smad Place or on Q Car, I know which one I'd want to be throwing his kitchen sink at.
And David, the Irish Challenge, how do you read it?
It's strong, but you just look at the Leopardstown last weekend when Carlingford Lough can come from that far off the pace to absolutely annihilate.
Still in Kilkenny, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Another one ran in the Gold Cup last year.
Yeah, and...
but wasn't that just a funny race?
Funny race, yeah, but, you know, you're talking about a Gold Cup, so, you know, you thought, so, you know, you think that Road to Riches would... You know, if he's going to win a Gold Cup, he's going to win. I'm a bit upset, you know, disappointed what Noel Meade said that they got the pace of the race wrong. I don't think, you know, I think Brian, look, okay, it seemed to be a bit stop-start, and Willie Munn's horse does that that presenting horse, the Patrick Road, he does a stop-start thing anyway. But
On his own.
On his
sorry.
own. But if we were to fancy Road to Riches for a Gold Cup, he should have been able to contend with that. I rode in it. I got a sweet run around on First Lieutenant. Couldn't have been going easier, but just got to the second last and wanted to jump into the ambulance.
Yes.
And
Great animal, that. I love that horse.
Yeah, I love him as well.
What about Don Cossack? To me, he's very interesting.
Don Cossack is a very good horse. He's still in the unknown. Where would he have finished in the King George if he stood up? That is the thing. For me, I think he would have been with them at the line.
Yeah, I do.
Very, very good horse.
Yet he was never really going in the early stages.
That's
his place.
That's his running style a little bit. Kempton can do that a bit, yeah.
There's no
You
place
always
to
say it's a complicated place. There's things happening all the time.
You're always on the turn.
And there's tracks. And
Yeah, you
roads.
can't compare it with Cheltenham.
Quite a big horse, and it wouldn't suit him.
Nobody is
But he was coping with it,
Yeah.
It was a credit to him the way he coped with it.
I was amazed he got back into the race.
And so was I, and it's a good trial of the horse. So
He looked a bit soft at one stage. He went round away from the stables. Something squeezed him up, and I thought, just
Cue card, yeah.
Yeah, I just thought I'd like to have seen him just pushed his way out, but maybe at Cheltenham, bigger place, a little bit more time.
Yeah, but he still was soldiering it out down to the second last. So look, it's the unknown. We don't know what would have happened. But for me, he's a high class horse. And he has the ability to win a Gold Cup, as you said. If he doesn't,
Did it surprise you they ran him as quickly as they did after that? Because he had a hard race in the King George.
Well, it was either going to be, Gordon was going to could have got plenty of stick for it. And that's the difference between you're doing the right thing and the wrong thing. There was no alternative to run him before Cheltenham. He had gone to the King George with a fall. He had very little competition in Thurles, and he had won that race last year. So for me, it was the right.
So it was just a confidence booster.
Oh, definitely,
basically.
definitely, and it was the right thing to do. And they then could train him directly for Cheltenham. Whereas if they didn't run him, they'd have had to school him, and the way things can happen. So I think it was the right thing to do. Yes, it was a bit close, but I think it was close to Kempton, but it was far enough away from Cheltenham.
I suppose the trouble is if you'd gone to Leopardstown, the ground looked horrendous in Leopardstown, and I'm sure one or two of them horses could.
Oh, they'll suffer.
That it's going to take them a couple of weeks to. Yeah. That's the trouble. You started getting close to Cheltenham. These are 3 mile plus chases on heavy ground. It's bound to take a little bit of edge off some of them. I know some horses are so tough you can run them every week.
Then you have Don Pauly, who's an enigma. If he was a girl and you were dating her, you wouldn't
know what to expect.
Half the time you would think that she's going to jump out the passenger side of the car, and half the time
I will have
she's
to
going
tell you,
jump
he's only
into the
7
driver's
at this
seat of the
stage,
car.
Davy, yeah.
But he to me is a phenomenal horse.
Really?
He at any stage of a race does not seem to be capable of winning it until the race is kind of over, and next thing he just wins the race with ease.
Yeah.
He probably has the strongest form, has he, as regards beating
Many Clouds at Aintree.
Compared to the English horses, he's the closest knit to it, is he?
He's one of those horses that will appreciate the trip. There's quite a few of them that you could say, will this actually come up the hill?
And
Yeah,
he'd be one you'd be disappointed.
What wins a Gold Cup?
Oh, absolutely. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Phil say the atmosphere. I think at Cheltenham seems to last year. He won the RSA, sort of looked like having a nice time last year. Where
Cheltenham would lift him.
Yeah, so
he's one
he
horse
sort
that
of almost
would raise his game.
Because it'd engage him up here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Jackadam, any Jackadam fans?
Yeah,
on the
obviously,
table?
you see, they're in the position now that Gordon was in. They're on a fall. He got a cut. He had to get injections. His training regime is going to be changed. As regards, forget about all that, and ability-wise, definitely. He's the form in the book to be banged there in the Gold Cup. Not the ideal preparation.
I think Ruby was really surprised he got beat last year, to be honest.
Yeah, and I suppose age, and you can count into a lot of things, and maybe. Was he good enough? It was a very, very good winner last year, so I wouldn't be disappointed that he got beaten last year. I just think maybe he just mightn't have been good enough last year. Did he improve this year? I don't know. I think
we don't know, to be honest.
It's hard to know. Yeah.
Any others, John? Your sneaky each-way bets and Gold Cups?
No, not really. I just think that, you know, it was one of those races last year that turned out to be exceptional, won by an exceptional horse, and logic says, right, well, you've got to back Jacadam, unless you're going to say that Don Poli or Don Cassick are suddenly horses or Q card. But I just think Smad Place looks a completely different horse since they've ridden him up the front. Jumps, gallops, and stays. You know, I wouldn't want to be in the ring laying him for too much.
And it'll be a Gold Cup where you wouldn't want to come from a long way back, would you? If he's...
Well, listen, that's what we were saying earlier about riding. You know, you ride what you ride compared to how fast they're going, and the likes of Don Poli, you know, he always looks like he's struggling. Don Cossack is another one that sometimes look like they're struggling, but they're grinders. They keep doing it. They don't go mad from them, but they just keep them. They just keep in contention.
So Smad plays Q card, is that right?
I go Q card. I think it's one of those races. I think if you stop the race at 3 out, I'll be amazed if you can find the winner from 3 out, because we all know in Cheltenham.
Couldn't find the winner after last year. He won it.
But do you mean it looks very, very open, like it's much the most competitive.
There's some wonderful results
race
in there too. I mean, Q card will be massively popular.
Massive.
You know.
Gene
But I think
He's become a real friend of the public's, and he's gone to that gig year in, year out. There's not many horses with the constitution to go to festivals, run their brains out year in, year out.
I'd like to know what he weighs now to what he was when he won that
About
bumper.
what I weigh, I think, probably.
He looked like a greyhound when he won the bumper.
Yeah. He's only 4-year-old.
Well,
Yeah.
Colin's saying he's just being a little easier on them this year, which is, you know, interesting.
Yeah.
And your selection?
Don't really want to sit on the fence. I think going back on last year's form, Jacadam of the Irish, he's done, you know, he's won over 2.5 this year, and just probably last year was such an extraordinary race. I'm going to think Jacadam.
Yeah, I'm Jacadam too. Gents, thank you very much.